are waking up to a church they no longer recognize. A document, released just hours ago, wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a proposal. It was a declaration. 15 reforms, not in a decade, not over the next generation. Now, and what you're about to hear might change how you see faith, power, and the future of the world's oldest institution forever. Before we dive into this, I need you to do me a favor. Drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching from. I want to know, because what we're about to discuss affects Catholics everywhere, and I have a feeling this video found you for a reason. Let's get straight into it. The document is called Cor Unum, which means one heart. But what it's doing is tearing the old heart of the church right out. Reform number 1, the end of financial secrecy. For centuries, the Vatican Bank has been one of the most secretive financial institutions on the planet. A black box of investments, donations, and assets worth, well, no one really knew. Until today. Pope Leo XIV has ordered the Vatican Bank and all Holy See financial departments to publish a complete, audited, line-item by line-item financial report for everyone, online, within 90 days. Every asset, every investment, every salary, every donation, where the money comes from, and where it goes. No more shadows, no more secrets. The shockwave from this alone is staggering. Sources in Rome say that several high-ranking officials in the Secretariat for the Economy tried to argue against it, calling it reckless. One apparently told the Pope, "Your Holiness, this will make us vulnerable." Pope Leo's reported response was quiet and ice-cold. He just looked at the official and said, "Good, the poor are vulnerable. So are the lambs. It's time the shepherds remembered what that feels like." This isn't just about balancing a budget. This is about trust. For you, for every person who ever put $1 in a collection plate, this is a statement that your faith isn't a commodity to be hidden away in a vault. It's a signal that the church can no longer preach poverty while sitting on uncounted riches. This reform says, we have nothing to hide. An old church learning a new word, transparency. Reform number 2, term limits for all clergy. Imagine being a CEO for life, a senator for life. That's been the reality for bishops and cardinals. They are princes of the church, appointed to their diocese or their Vatican offices, and they stay there until retirement or death. They build power bases. They become untouchable. Not anymore. As of today, Pope Leo has instituted mandatory term limits: 10 years for a bishop in any single diocese, 5 years for any cardinal in a major Vatican department. After your term is up, you are reassigned. You might go from running a major American archdiocese to serving as a chaplain in a hospital in the Philippines, from a powerful desk in Rome to a small parish in rural Africa. The goal is to break the ladder of ambition, to stop priests from climbing, and force them to serve. The fallout? It's a political earthquake. We're hearing that cardinals who have run their departments for decades are in a state of shock. One conservative commentator, a man named Brandon Walsh, who runs a popular Catholic blog, called it a complete dismantling of the institutional memory of the church. He's saying it's chaos by design. But a young priest from Chicago, Father Josh, wrote on social media, "For the first time, it feels like we're being asked to be pastors, not princes. I didn't enter the seminary to climb a corporate ladder." What does this mean for you? It means the church, at a local level, will change. It won't be defined by one man's personality for 30 years. It will be more dynamic, more fluid, and maybe, just maybe, more focused on people than on power. It's a reminder that a shepherd's job is to walk with the flock, not to build a throne on a hill. Reform number 3, the ordination of women to the diaconate. This is the one that has broken the internet. Take a deep breath. For 2,000 years, the sacramental roles of the Catholic clergy have been reserved for men. It was a line that seemed drawn in permanent ink. Today, Pope Leo erased it. The document officially authorizes the ordination of women as deacons. This doesn't mean women priests. The document is clear on that. But deacons are ordained clergy. They can proclaim the gospel at Mass. They can preach the homily. They can preside over baptisms, weddings, and funerals. They are a core part of the ministry. This is a seismic theological shift. It acknowledges that the call to serve, to minister, to lead at the altar is not exclusive to men. Inside the Vatican, the reaction is split right down the middle. We're hearing reports of shouting matches in the hallways. A group of traditionalist cardinals are already drafting a dubia, a formal letter of correction, calling this move an abuse of apostolic authority. But we've also received a leaked message from a woman who was part of the commission that studied this issue, a respected historian named Dr. Elena Rossi. She wrote to her colleagues this morning, "He didn't just open a door. He acknowledged the door was never truly locked. He just gave us the key." When a journalist asked the Pope's spokesman why this was done now, the answer was a quote directly from Leo. "Because the Church has been breathing with only one lung. It is time for us to breathe with two." For every Catholic woman who has felt unheard, unseen, or relegated to the background, this is a thunderclap of validation. It means that the voice you hear from the pulpit, the hands that baptize your child, could belong to a woman. It is a fundamental rereading of what ministry looks like. It's not just about changing a rule. It's about seeing the face of God in the other half of humanity. Reform number 4. A complete restructuring of the sacrament of reconciliation. Confession. For many, it's a source of anxiety, a dark box, a whispered list of sins, a feeling of judgment. Pope Leo is trying to change that. The fourth reform rebrands and restructures what we call confession. It's no longer being pushed as a moment of judicial judgment, but as spiritual guidance and healing. The reform encourages face-to-face conversations over the anonymous screen. It pushes for what are being called councils of reconciliation, where parishes can gather for a communal service of prayer and forgiveness, followed by individual conversations with a priest. But here's the most radical part. The reform decriminalizes sin. It formally moves the Church's teaching away from a legalistic list of mortal and venial sins, and toward a focus on the brokenness of relationship with God and neighbor. The Pope's own writing in the document is startlingly personal. He writes, "For too long, we have treated the confessional as a courtroom where God is the judge. We must return it to its rightful place, the field hospital, where God is the physician." The reaction is one of profound confusion for some, and relief for others. A priest in Ireland, Father Michael, posted online, "How do I teach this? For 500 years we've had clear lines. Are there no more mortal sins? This is theological anarchy." But a young woman from California, Megan, sent us a message that read, "I haven't been to confession in 15 years because I was terrified of being judged. I just cried reading this. I might actually go back, not to a box, but to a conversation." This changes the very feeling of being Catholic. It reframes sin not as a list of rules you broke, but as a wound that needs healing. It suggests that God is more interested in your recovery than your rap sheet. It's a shift from fear to mercy, a quiet revolution in the soul. Reform number 5. Mandatory laity. Led accountability boards. This reform addresses the darkest chapter in the modern church, the abuse crisis. For decades, the scandal was the abuse itself. Then, it was the cover-up, the church investigating itself. Bishops investigating priests, cardinals investigating bishops. It failed. Pope Leo has now taken that power away from the clergy. Effective immediately, every diocese in the world is required to establish an independent, lay-led accountability board. These boards will be made up of former prosecutors, child safety experts, psychologists, and parents not priests. They will have the full, independent authority to investigate any and all allegations of abuse, financial, psychological, physical, or sexual against any cleric, including the bishop himself. Their findings will not be recommendations. They will be binding, and they will be made public. This is a complete surrender of internal clerical power. It is an admission that the system was broken and could not fix itself. We have a quote from a survivor, a man named David, who has spent 20 years fighting for this. He was in tears on the phone this morning. He said, "We were never asking for revenge. We were asking for the truth. For the first time, I feel like someone in a position of power actually heard us." The resistance from within the church hierarchy is said to be immense. An anonymous source, a high-ranking bishop, told an Italian newspaper, "The Holy Father is inviting wolves to guard the sheepfold. He is treating his own bishops like criminals." But Pope Leo wrote in the document, "A shepherd who cannot be held accountable by his flock is not a shepherd. He is a king, and Christ's kingdom is not of this world." For you, this means safety. It means that the protection of children and the vulnerable is no longer a secret internal matter for the men in charge. It's now in the hands of outside experts. It's the church finally admitting it needs help, and that the safety of a child is more important than the reputation of a priest. It's a painful but necessary cauterizing of a deep, deep wound. Reform number 6, the dissolution of the papal nobility. You might not even know this existed. For centuries, the Vatican has operated like a medieval court, with a system of papal nobility. Certain families in Rome were given hereditary title sprints, duke, baron by the pope. They held positions of honor, wore special uniforms, and acted as the pope's ceremonial court. It was a symbol of an old world, of aristocracy, of a church intertwined with power and privilege. Today, Pope Leo XIV abolished it. All of it. The titles, the positions, the special privileges, gone. With a single paragraph, he dissolved a 1,000-year-old tradition. His reasoning was stark. The only title that matters in the court of Christ is child of God. The rest is dust and theater. The reaction from these ancient Roman families is one of quiet fury. They see it as an insult, a rejection of their centuries of loyalty to the Holy See. But for almost everyone else, it's a powerful symbol. He didn't just fire cardinals, he fired princes. He looked at the gilded ceremonial layer of the Vatican and said, "This is not us anymore." A photo that's going viral right now captures it perfectly. It shows the Pope, just after the document was released, walking through one of the ornate halls in the Apostolic Palace. An elderly man in a formal ceremonial uniformone of the now former papal gentlemanry to kneel. Pope Leo stopped him, helped him to his feet, and simply hugged him. No words. Just a gesture that said, "That world is over. Welcome to this one." This reform may seem small, but it's not. It's about spiritual posture. It's the Pope telling the world that the church is not a monarchy. It's not a country club. It's a family. And in this family, there are no special members. Reform number 7, a universal catechism for a digital age. The Catechism of the Catholic Church is the official summary of all its teachings. The last major update was in 1992. It's a dense academic book. Pope Leo has ordered a complete rewrite, but it's the way he's ordering it that's revolutionary. He's not handing it to a committee of cardinals in Rome. He has announced a global digital synod.
Pro videos without ever being on camera. Just type the AI does the rest. Hate being on camera. You are not alone.
Global digital synod. He's inviting theologians, but also scientists, artists, poets, mothers, fathers, and even atheists and agnostics of goodwill to contribute to a new catechism. The goal is to create a document that speaks the language of the human heart, not just the language of Thomistic philosophy. One that addresses modern questions: artificial intelligence, gender identity, climate change, digital isolation, with humility and openness. The new catechism he has mandated must be primarily digital, accessible, searchable, and accompanied by art, music, and testimony. Traditionalists are horrified. They see this as putting the faith up for a vote, of turning eternal truth into a crowdsourced opinion poll. A cardinal from Germany, Cardinal Mueller, publicly stated, "Truth is not a consensus. It is a revelation. This is a profound and dangerous error. But a young Catholic app developer in Austin, Texas, Lisa, who was invited to be part of the consulting group, told us, "We're not rewriting truth, we're retranslating it." The gospel wasn't handed down in a textbook. It was told in stories around a fire. That's what we're trying to get back to. This matters because it's about how faith is passed on. Are the teachings of the church a museum piece to be preserved under glass? Or are they a living fire to be shared in a language that people today can actually understand and feel? This reform is a bet on the latter. It's the church choosing to be a conversation instead of a lecture. Reform number 8, radical decentralization of the liturgy. For most of its history, the Catholic Mass has been rigidly uniform. A priest in Tokyo and a priest in Kansas City said the exact same words, in the exact same way, dictated by Rome. Reform number 8 blows that up. Pope Leo is giving episcopal conferences, the national bodies of bishops, the authority to adapt the liturgy to their local cultures. This could mean incorporating traditional music, local art, or different prayers that resonate with the local population. The document gives an example. A Mass in the Congo could feel very different from a Mass in Poland. A Mass in an indigenous community in Canada could incorporate traditions and symbols that honor their heritage. The guiding principle Leo wrote is, unity does not mean uniformity. The Holy Spirit speaks all languages. This is a direct challenge to the traditionalist wing of the Church that has fought for decades to preserve the Latin Mass and a uniform, universal rite. They see this as the Protestantization of the Church, a path to chaos where the sacredness of the Mass is lost. But a bishop from Brazil, in a letter to his priests, celebrated the news. He wrote, "For years, we have been trying to fit the soul of our people into a European box. Today, the Holy Father has given us permission to build a house for our faith that looks and feels like home." What does this mean for you when you walk into a church? It means the faith might start to look and sound a lot more like the world around it. It's a risk. It could lead to division. But it's also an incredible act of trust in local communities. It's the Vatican saying, "We trust you to find God in your own culture, in your own way." Reform number 9, the Church of the Poor made real. Every pope since Francis has talked about a Church of the Poor. Pope Leo seems determined to make it a reality, with a move that is both symbolic and incredibly practical. He has ordered the sale of dozens of non-essential, luxurious Vatican properties outside of Vatican City. These are palaces, opulent summer residences, and prime real estate investments in Rome, Paris, and London. The money raised, estimated to be in the billions, will not go into the Vatican's general fund. It will be placed into a new, independently managed foundation called the Fund for the Dispossessed. Its sole mission will be to directly fund global projects for housing, food, and clean water. But it's where he started that stunned everyone. The first property he put on the list was the Papal Summer Palace itself, Castel Gandolfo. For centuries, this was the Pope's personal escape. He has ordered it to be turned into a world-class hospital and rehabilitation center for the sick and the poor of Rome. When asked why, Pope Leo's only comment delivered through his press office was, "A shepherd should smell like his sheep, not like a country club." This move has been met with almost universal praise from the outside world, but quiet horror from the institutional church. These properties were symbols of the church's power and history. Selling them feels, to some, like selling the family heirlooms. It's seen as a weakening of the church's stature on the world stage. But what does it say to you, to the world? It's the most powerful sermon imaginable, preached not with words, but with deeds. It's a church trying to shed its skin of empire and rediscover the heart of its founder, a homeless carpenter from Nazareth. It's a sign that when Jesus said, "Sell all you have and give it to the poor," maybe, just maybe, he meant it. Reform number 10, full communion for divorced and remarried Catholics. For decades, this has been one of the most painful pastoral issues in the Church. Catholics who divorced and remarried without a lengthy, often humiliating annulment process were barred from receiving Holy Communion. They were in a state of permanent exclusion from the central sacrament of their faith. Reform number 10 ends that. The document, citing the Pope's own apostolic authority, creates a path of discernment where a person, in conversation with their priest or bishop, can be fully readmitted to the Eucharist without an annulment. It removes the blanket ban and replaces it with pastoral, individual discernment. Pope Leo writes in the document, "God's mercy is not a prize for the perfect, but a medicine for the sick. Who are we to deny medicine to those who are hurting the most?" This has created an absolute firestorm. It's seen by many as a direct contradiction of Jesus' own words on the permanence of marriage. The most prominent canon lawyers in the Church have written open letters claiming the Pope cannot change this doctrine. They are calling it heresy. We have a quote from a cardinal who spoke to a reporter on the condition of anonymity. He said, "The Pope has broken the Church. He has chosen cheap mercy over hard truth. Millions of souls are now in peril." But then you hear the other side. A 65-year-old woman from Philadelphia named Susan, who divorced an abusive husband 30 years ago and remarried a loving man, has been unable to receive communion for her entire adult life. She wrote to us, her email stained with what looked like tears. "I never left the Church, but I felt like the Church left me. Today, I feel like my Father has finally come and brought me home." This reform is not about changing the ideal of marriage. It's about how the Church deals with the messy, complicated, often painful reality of human lives. It's a choice to lead with mercy, even if it looks messy. It's a sign that the Church might be willing to risk being wrong in order to be compassionate. Reform number 11, a binding joint council with the Eastern Orthodox churches. In the year 1054, Christianity split in two: the Great Schism, the Western Church, based in Rome, and the Eastern Orthodox churches went their separate ways. It has been a 1,000-year-old wound. Popes and patriarchs have met, they've hugged, they've signed declarations, but the churches remain separate. Pope Leo has proposed something that has never been tried. He has formally invited the leaders of all the Orthodox churches to a new ecumenical council. But here's the unbelievable part. He has proposed that the council's decisions on how to reunite the churches will be binding on the Catholic Church. He is essentially offering to submit his own papal authority to the collective wisdom of a joint council in an effort to heal the schism. He wrote, "For 1,000 years, we have told our brothers we are the head. It is time to show them we are willing to be a heart beating in one chest." The geopolitical and spiritual implications are mind-boggling. The Patriarch of Constantinople is said to be cautiously optimistic, while the powerful Russian Orthodox Church is deeply skeptical, viewing it as a theological trap. Inside the Catholic Church, critics are calling it the surrender of the papacy, that he is giving away the authority given to Peter. A historian named Dr. Robert Jensen said, "This is either the most brilliant act of spiritual diplomacy in 500 years, or the end of the Roman Catholic Church as we know it." This is bigger than just church politics. It's about trying to heal one of the oldest family feuds in human history. It's a breathtaking gamble. A pope willing to give up power for the sake of unity. It's a reminder that sometimes, to build a bridge, you have to be willing to tear down your own walls. Reform number 12, the mandate of scientific literacy. The ghost of Galileo has long haunted the Church's relationship with science. For centuries, faith and reason were often seen as enemies. Reform number 12 seeks to end that war for good. Pope Leo has mandated that all seminaries, the schools where priests are trained, must include a rigorous, modern curriculum in cosmology, evolutionary biology, and climate science taught by leading secular scientists. Furthermore, he has elevated the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, giving it a new mandate and a new name, the Institute for the Dialogue of Truth. Its mission is to not just study science, but to integrate its findings into the Church's theological and ethical teachings in real time. His words in the document were direct. A faith that is afraid of the truth is not faith at all. To study the cosmos is to study the mind of God. To ignore the warnings of science on our climate is to commit a grave sin of omission against the poor and against future generations. He didn't just affirm climate change, he framed ignoring it as a sin. The reaction from some corners has been predictable. Certain fundamentalist groups are accusing the Pope of replacing the gospel with the gospel of environmentalism and scientism. But the head of the A major university's physics department, an atheist, Dr. Eris Thorne, publicly stated, "I have been a critic of the church my whole life. Today, for the first time, I see an institution that is brave enough to confront reality. The Pope is showing more intellectual courage than most politicians. This matters because it positions the church not as an obstacle to progress, but as a potential partner. It's an attempt to build a faith that is not afraid of facts. A faith that can look at the universe through the lens of a telescope and still see the hand of a creator. It's an end to the war between the lab coat and the cassock." Reform number 13. The abolition of the title Vicar of Christ. Titles matter. They shape how you see yourself and how others see you. The most formal, most powerful title for the Pope has always been Vicarius Christi, Vicar of Christ. It implies he is the direct, earthly representative of Jesus. In a move of shocking humility, Pope Leo has formally retired the title. He has ordered that in all official documents and public addresses, the Pope is to be referred to by his most ancient title, Servus Servorum Dei, the servant of the servants of God. He explained his reasoning in one short, poetic line in the document. "There is only one Vicar of Christ, and he is in heaven. I am Peter, the fisherman, forever casting my net and in need of his mercy." This is a theological self-demotion. It's a re-understanding of the papacy itself. He is rejecting the image of a spiritual monarch and embracing the image of a humble servant. Inside the Vatican, this is seen as a dangerous weakening of the office. One cardinal reportedly said, "He is stripping the throne. The world needs a strong father, a vicar of Christ. He is giving them a social worker." But the image it projects to the world is undeniable. Imagine the CEO of the world's largest corporation declaring he no longer wants to be called CEO, but simply co-worker. It's a radical rejection of the pomp and circumstance that has defined the papacy for centuries. It's a quiet act, but it speaks louder than 1,000 sermons. It's a pope trying to point away from himself and back towards the person he's meant to be following. It's a reminder that in the kingdom of God, the way up is down. Reform number 14. Re-envisioning the papal conclave. How is a pope chosen? A group of cardinals, all men, all over the age of 50, lock themselves in the Sistine Chapel until they elect one of their own. It's a closed, secret, medieval process. Pope Leo has decreed that the next pope will not be chosen this way. The 14th Reform lays out a plan for the next papal conclave, and it's stunning. The voting body will still include the College of Cardinals, but they will be joined by a council of 50 lay people, 25 men, and 25 women chosen from dioceses around the world. These lay people will include scientists, mothers, artists, activists, and young people. They will not have a vote for the next pope, but they will have a voice. They will be in the room, part of the formal discussions, advising the cardinals, questioning the candidates, and representing the voice of the people of God. The reasoning from Leo is powerful. The Holy Spirit does not only speak to cardinals. A shepherd should be chosen with the counsel of the flock he is to lead. This is, for many, the most shocking reform of all. It breaks open the most secret and sacred process in the Catholic Church. Critics are calling it a hostile takeover by amateurs. They claim it politicizes the conclave and turns a sacred act of discernment into a democratic convention. But a young nun from Kenya, Sister Mary, who works with AIDS orphans, wrote something that is spreading everywhere online. She said, "For the first time, the people who will have to live with the decision will be in the room when the decision is made. This is not politics. This is family." This reform ensures that the church of the future will be chosen, at least in part, by the church of today. All of it, not just the men in red hats. It's a bet that the Holy Spirit can be heard in the voice of a young mother from Manila, just as clearly as in the voice of an Italian cardinal. And finally, reform number 15, the Synod of all people. This is the culmination of everything. It's the final goal. Pope Leo has called for a new ecumenical council, the first since Vatican II ended in 1965. But this council will be unlike any other in history. He is calling it the Synod of all people. He is not just inviting the bishops of the world, he is formally inviting delegations from other Christian denominations, representatives from other world religions, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, and, in an unprecedented move, he has invited a delegation of secular humanists, atheists, scientists, and philosophers. The Council's goal is not to legislate for the Catholic Church. Its goal is to ask one question: how can we, as a human family, build a more just, merciful, and sustainable world for our children? He writes, "The Church is not a fortress for the saved. It is a boat sent into the deep waters of the world to fish for the good in every human heart. It is time we started talking to the rest of the crew." This is the ultimate expression of his vision. A church that has stopped talking to itself. A church that has left its own buildings to meet humanity where it lives. The fallout is total. Some are calling him a heretic, a globalist, an anti-pope who is trying to create a one-world religion. They believe he is dissolving the unique truth of the Catholic faith into a vague, feel-good soup. Others are calling him a prophet, a man finally living up to the promise of his title, Pontifex Maximus, the great bridge builder. So there you have it. 15 reforms in one day. The finances opened, the power structures broken, women brought into the clergy, mercy placed above rules, the poor put before palaces, science embraced, other faiths invited in. This isn't just a new chapter for the Catholic Church. It feels like a completely different book. A book written in a language of humility, risk, and a wild, terrifying, beautiful hope. We don't know what happens next. We don't know if this will lead to a schism or to a renewal. We don't know if the institution can even survive a shock of this magnitude. But one thing is clear. The old way of doing things is over. Pope Leo XIV has set a fire in the heart of Rome. And now, the whole world watches to see what it will burn down and what it will purify. Whether you're Catholic or not, a believer or not, what you've just witnessed is a hinge point in history. A 2,000-year-old empire is trying, before your very eyes, to become a movement again. And it leaves us with one profound question. Do you think Pope Leo is going too far? Or finally doing what needed to be done? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We need to talk about this. And if you want to follow this story, to get real-time updates on this revolution,